Byng, Publisher and Managing Director of Canongate. Welcome to the London Book Fair podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Nice to be talking, Liz.
Now, you've said that writing that permeates the brain is your sort of publishing philosophy or mission. The list is increasingly broad, so I guess it can permeate the brain in lots of different ways.
Yeah, I always wanted Canongate to be eclectic, and as time goes on, it gets more eclectic.
I mean, Canongate goes back quite a long way, but it's about 17 years since you, as a really quite junior employee, brought it out. Are you surprised, not so much by the audacity of hope, but by the audacity of youth in retrospect?
It was a risk, but actually it wasn't that big a risk in that, what we paid for it was a fraction of what people pay for a single book for an advance.
Yes,
so
I'm sure.
When you put it in those terms, it makes you think that it's just when you're young it feels. But when you're young, you're in a way more fearless, or you don't know better.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know
exactly.
You don't know, and I still feel like that. But the fact is, it seemed like an opportunity that would be a shame to pass by, and I certainly never regretted it.
What's been your most successful book in terms of sheer numbers?
Life of Pi.
It has been.
Still is, and Life of Pi is an extraordinary novel because of there's lots of things I think are extraordinary about it, not least just as a reading experience, but in terms of its longevity. This is a book that sold, I think, another 90,000 copies in 2010, which is 8 years after we published it, and Ang Lee is meant to be starting to film the movie of Life of Pi later this year, and that'll come out, I think, in spring 12. And this is a book that's going to be being read in 50 years' time, is still going to be selling in significant quantities.
And what are you most proud of, would you say, if you had to pick one or two books that you...
There are so many books I feel enormously fortunate to have worked on and very proud to have published. And, particular authors, I think, to me, the writer who I'd always go back to, who's almost the kind of foundation of Canongate, is Alistair Gray, and I think he's one of the truly great writers we have in this country. I reread Lanark this summer, and I hadn't read it for 20 years. I think Lanark is one of the, I can see why Ian Banks said it's the greatest novel of the 20th century. But, there are so many books
certain US presidents' memoirs have done very well.
Obama's been great. I think James Meeks' The People's Act of Love is one of the best things we've ever published. Kate Grenville's amazing writer. Maria Hyland, I think, is exceptional.
Yes, sure.
Helen Garner's The Spare Room I loved a lot. I think David Simon is one of the most important writers of non-fiction in America at the moment, and I think he is, as well as an extraordinary kind of creator when it comes to what he did with The Wire and then with Treme. And the list is, there are I think Niccolo Amaniti, this Italian
in terms
writer.
of non-fiction, it's quite exciting to have the US Press on
It's
the list.
great to have him. It's great to have him with Julian Assange, and I think that...
Yes, that's your most recent sort of high-profile signing. Well, because Obama wasn't high-profile when you signed him. He became high-profile.
He came high-profile
afterwards. What happens
afterwards.
when you go to Canongate,
Well...
But what about Assange, and what can you tell us? Probably not very much.
Well, not that much, other than we've bought a book which Julian's going to write. We bought world rights in it, apart from North American rights, where Knopf are going to be publishing it. And I think it's going to be one of the most significant books that gets published this year.
Is he going to surprise us?
I think that's the thing that excites me as much as anything, is not only to think Julian Assange is a really important figure in terms of what he's done and what he's doing and what I think he will do. And I think that's one of the things that's exciting about him, that people don't know where he's going next. And I think that's where some of the surprises lie. But I think in the way this book is going to be written and the story it tells is not one that anyone is expecting. And I think that is the most exciting thing of all. Everyone's going to have a sense of what they think this book is going to be like. They haven't a clue.
Now, you've done lots of audacious things, as we've just said, but perhaps your most audacious idea is World Book Night and giving away 1 million books.
Yeah, I suppose it's not just my idea. I'll put it this way, it's evolving as an idea, and there's a lot of great people working on it with me.
But you drove it, at the book.
Yeah, I suppose I can't deny that if it screws up royally, I'm the one who should carry the
success, everyone will claim it. If it's a failure, it'll be your fault.
It'll be my fault. No, it's certainly audacious, but that's what things sometimes need to be if they're going to make an impact. And the scale of what we're trying to do with World Book Night is something unprecedented, I think.
Where are you with your 20,000 givers?
We're now at 18,500 as of like 4 hours ago. We've actually extended the deadline to the 24th of January.
Right.
So this is going out before the 24th of January, I think. So if you hear this and you're
Yes.
not a giver, you should go to worldbooknight.org and you should apply to become one.
So what do you say to the critics of World Book Night?
Well, I think it's very short term to think that by giving a book away, you're not doing something really valuable to our industry. Kind of what do libraries do? They give books away. They give books away. They loan them out for free. Kind of what we're doing is actually an extension of what libraries do. And I love the fact that these World Book Night titles, if I give you a copy of The Reluctant Fundamentalist on March 5th, I'm hoping that book, come this time next year, that book might have been read by 12 different people who've passed it on. Each time the person who's passing it on hopefully will have loved it. They're saying, I was given this book by someone who was given it by someone who was given it back on March 5th. If 40,000 people are given a fine balance on one night by people
That's
talking
a lot of book
like
conversation.
that is that's a million
But I suppose people might
about-
say it's a terribly middle class. You know, what about those?
What do
You know,
you
what
mean?
about those reluctant?
That's ridiculous. It's middle class. First of all, the idea that middle class are the only people who read is an outrageous remark for anyone to claim. And the fact is, this is not in any way exclusive. This is about allowing books to be taken anywhere and everywhere. I think these books are going to have an incredibly positive impact on reading in this country, and having people talking about books and sharing books and all these things, as I say, have an incalculable longer term impact on reading and on book sales and on writing and on the conversation.
Did you discuss the idea of having it actually on World Book Day so that you have a sort of 24-hour bookathon, or was that?
We
just
did,
too-
and it was actually when talking to Alan Yentob at the BBC, who was very quick to come on board with this project and support it and say this was something that the BBC wanted to be partners on. And he said we couldn't do it on a Thursday because if we're going to put the sort of money we are into kind of broadcasting and making doing World Book Night programming for that night, it needs to be on a Saturday night because
Right,
that's when the
yes,
viewing figures are
yes.
going to be that much higher,
Uh-huh.
which is great, which means we get a much bigger night in terms of what
Sure.
the TV impact could be.
Do you think there's a good argument for saying that actually World Book Day should be the 23rd of April, Shakespeare's birthday, Cervantes' birthday?
That's what it'll be in 2012. World Book Night will be on April 23rd.
It will be?
Yeah.
Great, that is exciting. Because I always feel if we're going to have the world notion
Well,
of
it's,
it, we
I
need
c-
something, because
I-
then you could do all sorts of international link-ups.
I completely agree, and I would be surprised if World Book Night didn't happen in 2012 in anywhere between like 15 and 25 countries.
Wow, that's exciting.
So they're already publishers completely on board
Mm.
and are already starting to have the conversations in their own countries and working. You know, what we've tried to create is some sort of blueprint in the UK for how you can work with libraries, publishers, booksellers, agents, authors, the media, and most importantly, members of the public, and who are the ones who are going to drive this, because it is 20,000 members of the public. They're going to be the people giving the books out.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
just think's great about this. The best thing that can happen to our industry is that our culture too, is that more and more people read.
Yes.
The more people read, the more books you're going to sell. That is an equation no one could try and argue me otherwise. If someone says, it's all about book sales, it's not about reading books, I'd say you're talking shit. It's how many books are being read that is ultimately going to impact on how many books get sold. So that would be my kind of answer to the question, a very long-winded answer to the question of like, will it work? And the fact is, I don't know. There's so many logistical things that could go wrong with this thing, but I think we've got the right people working on it. The industry support for it across the board has been absolutely amazing. All the publishers have come on board, all the booksellers have come on board, all the wholesalers have come on board, all the agents are on board, all the authors are on board. It's just amazing how much goodwill there is. There are lots of people wanting it to work.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Here's to lots of success for us. Jamie Byng, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure. Thank you, Liz.